Hello, everyone, and
Hey.
hey, happy Friday, TGIF.
Yes, TGIF.
TG. Welcome to a very personal episode of Monarch Voices. I'll just quickly, for the sake of announcements around the cottage, just remind everyone that we do have a sip and shop scheduled for next Friday.
Yep.
We still do need vendors for that. So if you're interested in being a vendor, please reach out to us for the link or visit our website to just go ahead and sign up to be a vendor.
And what is that website? Do we know that website is it something?
Well, it's the Monarch Movement LLC.com is our website. You can enter, if you enter the Monarch Movement LLC.com, you will be able to access everything.
Okay, perfect.
So just so everyone knows, I'm an operations person. So the Monarch Movement LLC.com is your entry point, and all of our billing is processed through Shopify.
Okay.
So when you do enter the Monarch Movement, you can click a link to see all of our events that will take you into Shopify where you purchase your tickets or your membership. So thank you for that. That allows me to provide some clarity on our billing process.
And it's good for me to know as well, because I can just say visit
themonarchmovementllc.com.
Perfect.
Themonarchmovementllc.com.
No, I didn't have anything to do, because that's our email as well. I did not have anything to do with the
length of
the email.
Yes. But the thing is that
it's consistent.
It's consistent, and it's like the longer you are around, the harder it becomes to find unique domain names, unique names. You're going through the filing process.
Yeah.
You need to figure out how to distinguish yourself. So
we've gone through that with another project that we're working on.
Yes,
so.
we have.
Yeah.
Yes,
so
we have.
Totally get that.
So visit our website for all of the activities and events that are coming up. Everyone knows on Saturdays and Tuesdays we have yoga.
Yep.
But what we really want to talk to everyone about is just we did have our grief support group on Sunday with Cherise Brown Torres and Pushing Through Inc. And this week has been very reflective for us, to say the least.
Yeah.
I think that kind of for myself in particular, and I just thank you, Dawn, and thank you, Jared. My husband is here too, for kind of allowing me this space to kind of walk through some of my grief and some of what I experienced, even to get us here to the point of the cottage. So, like I said, this will be a very personal kind of episode, because we will be talking about grief and also just trying to conceive, pregnancy loss, and all that goes along with that. October is also pregnancy and infant loss awareness month. And I had said to you when I sent out the newsletter for this month, I did not kind of include that in all of the awarenesses or the causes that we were celebrating this month. And I don't know if that was like a subconscious overlook or what, because I just know in our family, October, November are very high months for grief, emotional months as far as grief are concerned.
Right.
So I've been struggling this week. It's been a tough week for me, as far as processing grief. And so I wanted to continue to talk about it.
Right.
Because I feel like the more that you talk about something, the easier that it will become to, not only work through, but it will take some of the sting out of it.
So I have to say that I do feel that the tools that we are getting, and I know I sound like a broken record, but the tools that we are getting through our yoga, through meditation, just through self-awareness, it allows us to have these conversations. And to be able to have the feeling and the emotion around the conversation, and then still come back and know that the conversations were based on emotion and based on us wanting to grow, right? So I just want to say how important it is to have tools when you start diving into these personal aspects, because some of this stuff, and I was going to say shit,
it is,
but some of this stuff, you may not have even realized that you're holding on to it, and then when you have these grief sessions or these networking sessions, emotional sessions, you're able to bring out some of that you didn't know was lying there. But go ahead.
No, thank you, Dawn, for saying that, because it is definitely shit, and that is to
you wish you could just take like an enema or something.
Oh yeah, just get rid of it, right?
Get rid of
and
it.
sometimes
it's not that easy. It's not that easy.
It's not that easy, right? It sticks around if you don't process it. And then, so what I realized, and I wrote this down, and what I realized is that it is necessary for me to process my grief, because I'm missing assignments or opportunities for me to be a blessing to others. And, sometimes we talk about blocking our blessings, but we never talk about blocking the assignments. And when you are, I think that I have been in a state of grief that may have caused me to, maybe miss some assignments, or miss some opportunities to be a blessing, or to be a support system for others. So I, for the sake of time, I mean, this is
But I just want to say something that, but it's all part of a process, right? You're now in a place of reflection and of self-awareness that you may not have noticed that before, right? Mm-hmm. So it's about awareness and growth.
And growth. And it's about awareness and growth. And it's about looking at certain patterns and wondering why you continue to play out certain patterns, and what that's caused from, or what that's all about.
Right.
So when we did our grief support group, we touched on a lot of things. We touched on one, the loss of our father, and how we may or may not have developed some not so healthy grieving coping mechanisms of that. Just keep going, just keep going, just keep going. The Black woman has to be strong. Oh, as a matter of fact, sidebar, before we were talking about, today is actually National Black Girl Take Off Day. So Black girls are not supposed to be working today. We're supposed to be like luxuriating or something. But anyway,
I missed the memo.
You missed the memo. But we talk about the loss of our father, and kind of how that taught us how to grieve or not to grieve, how to be strong in the face of grief.
And it, that's a hard one, because for me personally, I had never endured grief, or endured specifically the loss of someone. And then for it to be someone that was so close to me, so I didn't know how to handle it. So that was a different kind of loss for me.
Yeah. And I know at that point, he passed, and I think we took a week off, and then we started new jobs, and it was, onward and upward, right?
Yeah.
Keep going. And at that point, I think that at that point, the goal was to make him proud. So we just kept going because we thought that's what he wanted us to do. And yeah, you know what I mean? So you just keep going. But you don't really take that time to really process the loss.
And just and not to sidebar, but one of my last conversations with him, because at that point I think we had we were ending a job, we were training training people, and one of my last conversations that I remember was him saying how proud he was. And I believe that was my last conversation.
Yeah.
So Keep going, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So what that kind of led me to was also was the whole process of like trying to conceive, and that's kind of what ties into the pregnancy loss and infancy loss awareness month, infant loss awareness month, and that's what I just wanted to take a little bit of time to just talk through today, if that's okay.
Yep.
Like I said, I appreciate you always being a support for me, but I wanted to just, if it's okay, just kind of tell my story and just hope that maybe it resonates with somebody, and if not, at the very least, it's gonna be a very pivotal kind of step in my healing.
Sure.
My husband Jared, you guys know he's our what independent contractor, our sound producer, so he's also here. So he knows what we're going to talk about today, and because this is just as much his story as it is mine. When we were talking about like the grief that's around trying to conceive, and what I realized is that like first of all, I was very selective when I was trying to plan a family and do all of, the things that prepare you for motherhood.
Talk about selective. I believe that there was like a 9-page plan or something
it was like
that.
a lot of requirements.
There were a lot of requirements
that not only that were required for myself, but for the potential, my potential husband, and just the father of my children. It was very, very high requirements. So in my 20s and 30s, I did not get caught up. Like the funny thing is that, no offense to guys or anything, but people say that I moved a lot like a guy because I was not going to get caught up. I have my list of requirements. If you didn't cut it,
Well, you've got to realize, and you probably should also preface this with saying that our father passed away, and you were barely 21, right? So your plan started quite early.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my plan started quite early, and I was like, when daddy passed away, I purchased a home. So I was a homeowner by 22.
Right.
So that automatically kind of put me in a different mindset than a lot of people,
right.
So at my age, which, well, I don't know if it was a blessing or, not so much.
Right.
But nonetheless, I was very selective, extremely selective. And that's when I met Jared, and I was 36, 37 when I met Jared. And when I started thinking about having a child, like I had already had a successful career, like everything was already planned out. And you and I talked earlier before about the grief of the plan, right?
Yeah.
Because I waited for this plan to be perfect, to the point where like I waited for the perfect guy, the perfect father. Like this wasn't just, when I when I was ready to start this process, it wasn't just a matter of, I wanted to make sure that this child was set up for the best of everything, even the person that so even Jared, making sure that this was the right dad, for this child, and so we tried to conceive for, I would say, about 2 to 2.5 years, without any success, and that was really just. I thought that the timing was wrong. Like, I thought that we weren't doing it often enough. And within that time, I created this cycle of testing. And I would spend a lot of time and a lot of money on pregnancy tests. And this cycle of hope and then disappointment, hope and disappointment. And I realized that that's kind of when I got not addicted to it, but I got accustomed to playing out this cycle, of hope and disappointment every month, because it was hope up until the point your period comes, and then that disappointment after your period's done, let's do it all over again.
Right.
So that was probably what started the kind of the cycle of this disappointment, hope and disappointment, this emotional kind of roller coaster. And then we finally do get pregnant in 2020, March of 2020.
COVID.
So, but even before that, that process of every month, even when I got pregnant, I still, underneath my cabinet in the bathroom, was still filled up with all these old, and it was like hoarding them at some point, all these old negative pregnancy tests. And then finally, and I would do it at work. Like at lunch break, I would go out and buy 2 packs of pregnancy tests. And then I would come back in my office. I would go do them, come back in my office, close the door, and just obsess over them. And I would test so to think, if you were spending that much, how often? I was testing every hour, as if those results were going to change, every hour.
Well, and speaking of that, I do recall, there would be text messages with pictures of pregnancy tests, and you would be like, do you see a line? Do you see a faint line? Yeah,
I still have those pictures, and through this process, I'm hoping that I'll get to a point where I'll clean those pictures out of my phone and all that stuff. But I do still have those pictures. And you weren't the only one that was getting those texts. My best friend was getting those texts. Teresa was getting those texts. Ashley worked with me at the time. So Ashley was actually getting pulled into the office in person. Wow. Ashley, do you see this? Do you see this faint line? Do you see anything? And so we went through that highs and lows, highs and lows, highs and lows. And then finally, like you said, I said March 2020, the line is there. Mm-hmm. The line's finally there. And we were scheduled to get married in April 3rd of 2020. So April 3rd, 2020, we're scheduled to get married. March 15th, COVID happens. March 3rd is when we get the positive pregnancy test. So we finally get a positive pregnancy test. And then COVID shuts everything down. But it's not a big deal because we got this baby coming and everything. So I was sad about the wedding being canceled and everything being locked down.
But you guys got married anyway.
Well, we got married anyway. So our officiant was still I'll still marry you guys.
Yeah.
The photographer was still like, I'll still
Take
show
good
up and take pictures. So we were still got married anyway.
Right.
And that day, like in hindsight, that day was probably the high point, right? So we still get married on our wedding day, April 3rd. And then on April 9th is when we go for an ultrasound and the baby does not have a heartbeat. And what came out in the grief counseling or the grief support group last week was like, yeah, I know it was COVID and all, but I could have still gotten a picture or an ultrasound or something. And so,
do you think that would have made it easier?
I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I'm thinking about it, but
you're grieving. One of your grieving moments to me, I believe, is still that you don't have a picture.
Yes. That is one of my grieving moments or my points, is that I don't have a picture. I don't have an ultrasound. But what I did realize is that there is a photo that is of me, Jared, and myself on our wedding day, and we are like caressing my stomach, like, so there is a picture to acknowledge this child, even though there's not the formal ultrasound.
Right.
So those are the things that I would like to try to work through.
Yeah.
Is starting to recognize that I don't have to put this in a box. I don't have to pretend like it never happened. Because it's trauma. I can recognize it and I can still process through it.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason that I wanted to talk about it today on this forum. I wanted to talk about it today on this forum. One, because I feel like the more you talk about it, any type of subject that is traumatic, the easier it becomes to process and feel those emotions and understand those emotions and how they may be playing a role in your life today.
Right.
And then the other is that I also know this is something that not a lot of women, not a lot of couples talk about. And it's a thing, like, a lot of women have had pregnancy, infant loss, and it's something that we go through in private. But then when you start having these discussions, so many people say they experience the same thing.
Yeah.
So,
And I don't, not to tell anyone's story, but I also have had trauma in the sense of, not me personally, but a grandchild.
Mm-hmm.
Elijah. And I don't know that it's something that you, I guess my next, look, see, it's so much, it's so much, but because I've never physically experienced that, but once I went through it with Jasmine, I've realized the conversation, other women and we started having conversations around this, and what's the support that's needed?
Yeah.
How, as someone who may not have gone through it physically, but still affected by it, how do they support someone that's actively going through it themselves? I guess my question is just around support. How do you support each other?
I think that the first thing that we can do to support anyone is offering a safe space to talk about it, right? Because we often talk about the things that we bury deep down inside and how shame leads to what do we say? Secrecy leads to shame, and shame leads to a lack of communication, and all of that trickle down. And I think that the more that we can talk about something, and the more that we can normalize, women talking about trauma or talking about pregnancy loss, and that loss of that grieving of the plan, that grieving of the dream.
That plan.
That plan will get you, right?
Yeah. That plan, that grieving of that plan, because if we have plans, right? Because we come from a mother and father. That I think you tried to move out a lot of times, and and Daddy would be like, "No,
my budget could not get approved to even move out."
Right. So we kind of built our roadmap based. It's based on a plan.
Don't move until you're ready. Plan your next steps out and make sure that there's solid next steps.
So when that plan falls through.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not just talking about a plan like, what we're going to have for dinner today, but when our life plan falls through, you grieve, and you don't even realize sometimes that you're grieving that loss. Grief comes at you in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know where I was sidebarring to that.
But no, you were just saying how I think you were I don't remember. I'm sorry, I don't remember but it's a heavy discussion. And
but honestly, even our grief session that we had on Sunday was heavy, and it was like the more you talked about it, the more things started to pop up in your mind that you realized was something that you were holding on to, and that you were grieving, but didn't really, understand.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, it's not just, we think about grief as far as someone passing away, but it could be the loss of a job, the loss of a friendship. It could be you moved away, and it's the loss of your hometown. Like, any major change in life can trigger that grieving process, and you need to know how to navigate through it.
Right. And I think I just went back to, I remember I was saying, how do you support someone that is grieving?
Yes. I think the way to support, and this is just my opinion, but I think it is being there, asking them, what do you need? And then the thing is that sometimes people can't even articulate
what
they need. But you still have to let them know that you're there for them. So you may just check in and say, hey, let me know if you need to talk.
Right.
So that they know that there is a safe space for them to have support. One of the things that I would like to do kind of going forward is I thought about journaling, and at the end of our session, Sharice Brown Torres provide us with these care packages.
Right.
And one of them was talking about all of them were building resilience.
Right.
And how building resilience helps you kind of go through the steps of that grief.
Okay.
And one of the things that it said was journaling.
Yeah.
And I know we talk about journaling a lot, but I was thinking about journaling in terms of writing letters to this child in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that for me would be very useful.
Okay.
Because I think it would allow me to still recognize all of the would-be milestones. it would still, when I see a mother and daughter out, it would still, and I'm thinking, oh, that would be, me and my child, or if I see a family out, or a mother and daughter, or father and son playing ball in the front yard. Oh, that would be Jared and what did you call him, Biff? Because everybody just knew our baby was going to be so so Biff or Buffy. Biff or Buffy. But yeah, so I will start journaling, and I will create a collection of letters to my child in heaven. And this I will, instead of feeling pain, I will allow myself to feel my emotions, but I will still feel like I'm talking to this child and still nurturing this child. And I hope, like I said, as I process my grief, it allows me to be a blessing and an asset to other people.
Yeah.
Because what I don't want is to be so stifled by my grief that it makes me cold or hard or anything like that.
Right.
So that's really what I want to focus on. So we also talk about the pregnancy loss, and I also want everyone to, all the women and couples, to know that we also, we tried IVF as well. So that also continued this cycle of the hope and the disappointment, hope and disappointment, hope and disappointment. So I think the biggest thing, from my perspective, that I got out of that grief support group last week, and I'm going to try to wrap this up with a nice bow because is that I recognize a pattern within myself that I am playing out in relationships, in friendships. I played it out at work. I got a big promotion, hope. And then I was like, oh, I'm falling apart. I can't. And disappointment. So I'm playing this pattern out. And I think that awareness is probably the first key to it. So you see how it's like, even though I'm crying, I'm very proud of myself for the awareness of this hope and disappointment. Hope and disappointment. And so that's what I'm going to be processing. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Jared. Jared Curl, my husband. Thank you, Sharice Brown Torres. And thank you, T. Griff. T. Griffin was also here with us last week.
Right.
That was part of our support group. And Sky, that was part of our support group.
Yeah. And
I just wanted everyone to know what I got out of it.
Yeah.
How I'm working through it. Yes, it was a tough week.
Yes.
I drank a lot of tequila, but I feel like I'm coming through it.
And how does that feel?
That feels good.
That feels good for me. Yeah, and that couldn't explain the cottage.
Yes. So any better. So everyone, y'all know that's how the cottage came. So when I reached that point in my pinnacle of my career and I saw everything's falling apart, I went to the hospital. Shout out to Christiana Care, 7 North. If I am a big proponent, if you do not feel well, go to the ER and they will help you. And that's where I was. I went to Christiana Care. When I left Christiana Care for a week, Jared came to pick me up, and my number one objective when I left there was self-care.
Self-care.
And from that point, I started getting massages. I started getting waxing. I started only focusing on things that would make me feel good.
Right.
And the cottage was our attempt to bring that to everyone else.
Right.
So yeah, that is what the cottage is about. It's about the evolution, the continuous growth, the self-awareness, and the courage.
The courage.
To unpack that shit. Because we all got,
we all got it. We all got
gross. It's nasty, and we gotta deal with it.
You've got to deal with it, and once you deal with it, you've got to accept what it was, and keep it going,
and keep growing,
You know, this has been a good talk.
Thank you for giving me this space. I really appreciate it.
No. I just appreciate that you're comfortable enough to have this conversation. I'm sure this is going to help many people. And October is a really good month of reflection.
Mm-hmm.
I think we said that for September. October definitely is a month of reflection,
and as we move into November, we're going to be focused on gratitude. So it's very important that this month we do as much work as we can to reflect, so that we are prepared for the areas, and we are able to recognize the areas to show gratitude as we close out the year.
As we close out the year.
It's been a year of growth. What we say, 2024 was the Kobe year, man.
2024
Whew.
was a year.
But
you know what? It was a good year. It was an exciting year, and I can't wait for
what comes next.
Yeah. So thank you guys for hanging out with us, and much love to baby Carol. Much love to baby Elijah. And we love you guys, and
have a good week, y'all.
Have a good week, and stay positive.